This is the Everyday AI Show, the everyday podcast where we simplify AI and bring its power to your fingertips. Listen daily for practical advice to boost your career, business, and everyday life.
I talk to hundreds of enterprise leaders a year, and do you know what kills most AI projects? Teams can't experiment without IT freaking out about production risks. That's where Area comes in. They built a secure sandbox environment where your teams can prototype, test different models, and even run A/B tests between agents, all before anything touches production. Drag and drop interface works with any AI model you choose, and when you're ready, you move to production on the same platform. So check out today's show notes or see our website for a free trial of Area. Go to AIRIA.com because innovation needs a safe place to fail fast. Two tech titans have formed an unlikely partnership on AI that's worth $1 billion a year. The leading AI startup is in hot water after kind of, but not really, but kind of suggesting federal backing for AI projects. And there may be a new open source AI model that could shake up the AI space way more than DeepSeek ever did. Yeah, a lot of drama, a lot of new partnerships, a lot of questions that hopefully will get answered today on Everyday AI. What's going on, y'all? Welcome to Everyday AI. My name's Jordan Wilson, and this thing's for you. It's a daily live stream podcast and free daily newsletter that helps everyday business leaders like you and me make sense of the who's who, the what's what, and the who did what. Yeah, every single Monday, we do this thing called the AI News That Matters. So if you're looking to grow your company and career by understanding and leveraging AI, this is where it happens. And Mondays, especially if you can only join one day and you have to know who's moving, who's shaking, this is where you do it. So if you haven't already, please make sure you go to our website at youreverydayai.com. Sign up for the free daily newsletter. We do it each and every day, Monday through Friday. We're going to be recapping the highlights from today's show, as well as giving you all of the other AI news that's happening today. But for the news that matters for the week, let's get into it. And let's start with the two tech titans shaking hands once again. That is Apple paying Google $1 billion a year to use Gemini. So according to reports, Apple is making headlines for choosing Google's Gemini AI over others to power the next generation of its smarter, well, maybe smarter, Siri assistant. So Apple will reportedly pay $1 billion a year to Google for a specialized version of Gemini AI, a version with 1.2 trillion parameters, according to Bloomberg's Mark Gurman. So the decision reportedly came down to cost, with Google's offer beating Anthropic's $1.5 billion annual price tag. So the new Gemini model will reportedly launch on Apple's private cloud servers in spring 2026, handling complex Siri tasks, while Apple's own models continue to run on devices for personal data. So who knows if that'll work, but at least the ones with Gemini will probably work. So Apple does not plan to really highlight or publicize Google's involvement in Siri and its future marketing, keeping the partnership mostly behind the scenes. So despite lagging behind rivals in AI innovation, Apple is leveraging partnerships with leaders like Google, and they have a current partnership with OpenAI to add generative features to its devices. Well, these two tech titans, even though they're competitors, especially on the hardware side, they're actually frenemies because Google has been paying Apple between $15 to $20 billion a year to remain the default search engine on Apple devices, a deal that has drawn antitrust scrutiny from the U.S. Department of Justice. And Apple's reliance on Google for both search and AI highlights its strategic choice to just buy or kind of rent versus build the core technology in some areas because they've failed to do so. So Apple CEO Tim Cook has not ruled out acquiring an AI company, though they can't do that to Google, obviously, signaling that Apple may still be making bigger moves in the space. So yeah, if you want, I'm not going to give you my opinion on this because we actually had a poll on the podcast. So yeah, if you're listening on the podcast on Spotify or Apple, actually just Spotify, make sure to scroll down, and most days now we're going to have a poll, and you all said you wanted this as the Hot Take Tuesday. So if you want to know more on this story, my opinion. Make sure to tune in tomorrow. That's going to be our Hot Take Tuesday episode. All right. Next, no federal bailout for AI. So the White House is taking a decisive stance on artificial intelligence policy as the U.S. seeks to strengthen its position in the fast evolving global tech race. So here's kind of what happens. And we're going to unpack this a little bit more later in one of our other news stories. But David Sachs, the White House AI and crypto czar, announced there would be no federal bailout for AI companies. And here's why. The statement came after OpenAI made some government backing comments, which we'll get to later, and as well, a bold bet against AI from Michael Burry. So, Michael Burry is the famed investor who rose to being a household name after predicting the 2008 housing crash. So, yeah, the Big Short, right? The housing crash was Michael Burry, and he made headlines by acquiring over $1 billion in put options against AI leaders NVIDIA and Palantir. So, yeah, essentially, the Big Short guy is shorting against AI, and that's caused a lot of stir in the market, and it sent global stocks down. But specifically, the two that he took positions against, NVIDIA dropped about 7% in the days after that, and Palantir dropped 11%. So between the OpenAI comment, kind of hinting at government backing for AI projects, and the Big Short kind of play there, it kind of had a lot of people wondering, well, is the government going to get behind, right? Like how they bailed out the banks. And David Sachs essentially said, no, not a chance. And Sachs also noted that the U.S. currently has at least 5 major frontier AI model companies, assuring that if one fails, others are ready to step in and fill the gap. So yeah, a lot more on the OpenAI side of that later. And if I'm being honest, I thought, right, because I put it out to a poll to our audience. I thought people would want to hear about this as the Hot Take Tuesday, but you all wanted the Apple and Gemini. So let me just give you my quick 2 cents on this. I think this is going to be an evolving conversation. Right. So without getting too much into the geopolitical side, a lot of people, when they're looking at AI, they're looking at it face value. They're looking at it as a technology, right? Like, I don't know, a CRM or the cloud or social media. It's not that, right? Without getting too deep into it, let's just say this. I think AI is ultimately going to become much more important than even the military. Because if you really can control AI or achieve artificial general intelligence before any other country, what that means from a military standpoint translates to the geopolitical and obviously on the commerce side. So AI is extremely important. So I do think there's actually cases to be made for the government to have some sort of backing or skin in the game when it comes to the AI infrastructure. Obviously, they've been supporting it through Stargate and other initiatives, but I actually don't think it's a crazy kind of road to go down. But more on that here in a couple minutes. All right. Next piece of AI news. Well, more Google news. That's because Google had a big deal with Anthropic, which saw their valuation soar. So Anthropic may soon be valued at over $350 billion as Google just reportedly entered talks into deepening its current investment in Anthropic. So Google's move reflects its aggressive commitment to AI and signals a new wave of competition in the sector. So yeah, it's not OpenAI just running away with this with a reported $1 trillion IPO that may or may not be happening. Now all of a sudden you see Anthropic's valuation soaring. So that $350 billion figure is a significant leap from previous rounds, like twice as much as from earlier this year, highlighting the just straight up silly growth in the sector, as investor confidence around AI leaders continues to soar. Google already holds an equity stake in Anthropic, but this new investment round could cement its influence as the generative AI kind of competitor to themselves and OpenAI, right? So I've always said it is kind of a two-horse race between OpenAI and Google. So some people might be confused. Okay, why is Google sticking billions of more dollars into someone that is technically a competitor? Well, hey, if Anthropic ends up eating some of the market from, let's say, Microsoft or Google or OpenAI, well, Google will still profit. So it makes sense to even still be funding one of their bigger competitors, especially on the coding side, right? Gemini 2.5 Flash, Gemini 2.5 Flash Lite. It's gotten extremely popular. We know there's going to be a Gemini 3 coming any day, week, or month now. So yeah, pretty interesting news. All right. Speaking of interesting news on the AI model front, a new open source model benchmarking above frontier proprietary models. Yeah. So if Moonshot AI's benchmarks are to be believed, and we will see just how well they're verified by third parties. We could have that. So Moonshot AI released a new open weight model called Kimi K2 Thinking, and its posted benchmark scores surpassed OpenAI's obviously proprietary GPT-5 on several key tests. So probably one of the more attention-grabbing stats is K2 Thinking's 60.2 on browser comp, a demanding web search and agentic reasoning benchmark, which beat GPT-5's 54.9% and Anthropic 4.5 thinking at 24%. So K2 is released under a modified MIT license on Hugging Face that allows full commercial use, but requires prominent Kimi K2 attribution only if a product serves over 100 million monthly active users. All right, so what does this mean? Well, in open source model, if you don't follow it, that means you can actually download it and you can run it and you don't have to pay anything. Obviously, there's options to pay this via the API to use it on their website. But having an open source model that is now entering frontier model territory, this is pretty big. Right. We'll see how well it sticks because we have seen some of the open source models, specifically from China, that get released with very high internal benchmarks. But then when they go through other benchmarks and other third parties, they seem to waver a little bit. We saw that with Quen 3 coming out internally, what was reported with some very lofty benchmarks, but through third parties, they maybe were a little overfitted for specific tests. So we'll see how, as everyone gets their hands on this and puts it through the paces, if Kimi K2 Thinking is still at that level. Is it going to be a GPT-5, Claude Sonnet 4.5 level model? If so, that's silly. It is silly that we could have an open source model, right? I think this is what the premise of Meta's Llama 4 behemoth was supposed to be, and they just didn't release it, I think, because they weren't happy with the results. So we kind of got a very good version of what we never actually received from Meta with the Llama 4 behemoth. But y'all, this could be pretty big. And for whatever reason, this isn't kind of carrying with it the same kind of cloud of uncertainty as DeepSeek was, although I think that might unravel because there was some original reporting with an unnamed source that said the Kimi K2 thinking model only cost $4.5 million to train. So don't believe that. I don't believe that's true, right? We heard the same thing, similar Pinocchio tales that were told by DeepSeek back in January, and the media ran with it until a semi-analysis report debunked those training cost claims. So I wouldn't pay attention, right? Like if this has caught your attention and you're like, okay, should my company be using Kimi K2 thinking? Well, maybe. But don't pay attention to the $4.5 million. Pay attention to your own internal benchmarks. But this could be a pretty big shift. I think what this might ultimately do is it might force Google to release even more versions of their Gemma, which is an extremely capable open source model. It might force OpenAI to push more on the GPT OSS, right? Very good open source model, but that's more GPT 4.0 territory, not GPT-5. So this could really shake the proprietary market and not just the open source market. So we're going to be continuing to keep our eye on Kimi K2 Thinking. We'll probably put it through the paces ourselves, right? But yeah, you do have to have a pretty powerful computer. I mean, Apple's probably happy about this. They're probably going to sell some more of their Mac Studios. Probably NVIDIA is very happy about this because a lot of people think, okay, what does this mean in the long term for running AI in the cloud like everyone does, right? Some people are thinking, oh, well, no one's going to go use or pay $20 a month for OpenAI. That's not the case. It's still, you have to have like a $10,000 plus setup to run it, and it's still not entirely fast, but it is secure to be able to download something and run it locally on your machine. Pretty big. We have to pay attention. All right. We also have to be paying attention to our next news story. That's because Microsoft, fresh off their, I wouldn't say breakup with OpenAI, but kind of now that the relationship has changed, Microsoft is now leaning into superintelligence, but not in the same way. So Microsoft is formally launching a superintelligence program aimed at building safer, human-centered frontier AI models. And they're calling it the Humanist Superintelligence. So Microsoft AI chief Mustafa Suleyman will lead the new division. So the new Microsoft AI Superintelligence team with chief scientist Karen Simeon and core MAI or Microsoft AI researchers shifting focus to this initiative. So Suleyman says the goal is a humanist superintelligence designed to be subservient to humans and to keep people at the top of the food chain, emphasizing that humans matter more than AI. So Suleiman cautioned that results will take time, noting it will likely be a good year or two. Interesting. Before the superintelligence team produces frontier models. So he didn't say it's going to be a year or two before they get to something that they might deem superintelligence. It's just until they start releasing what they would say is a frontier model. So the move follows Microsoft's prior contractual limits with OpenAI that barred a direct pursuit of AGI. And with this new agreement, the new OpenAI restructure that we've been covering over the last few weeks, Microsoft is now openly competing in the push toward AGI and beyond. So yeah, it was kind of this big question mark in the room. What happened when this restructure came along? Would Microsoft openly go after AGI? And well, they kind of did, right? They're more going with this humanist superintelligence, which I don't know. To me, it seems kind of counterintuitive because when you talk about superintelligence, that's in theory when you kind of get past AGI. So, right, when you get to right now, we would probably, I think most people would say we have artificial narrow intelligence or ANI. AGI would be the next step. And that's been a moving goalpost for many years, right? I did a show like 2 years ago looking at the definitions of AGI from like 2005, 2010, 2015. By those definitions, we're well past it, but by today's definitions, probably not. But right. So artificial superintelligence is essentially when the machines don't need humans anymore. So to me, I'm almost like scratching my head. So what is this humanist super intelligence? Because if you do truly achieve, super intelligence, that means the models don't need humans, right? It's they're self-learning. So a little more on that. Suleiman did confirm the team will explore recursive self-improvement or RSI because performance gains will come from it, while also recognizing the risks and the need for clear decisions on when and how systems can learn autonomously. So yeah, that's more of a future episode to tackle like what the heck is humanist super intelligence? Can that even exist? I don't know. I personally think, super intelligence is probably a scarier thing, a little, more uncertain and a little, making people feel a little uneasy, right? When, the AI is just going to make decisions on its own, build its own models, it has humanoid forms, right? That's when it starts to get a little like, So I guess you need something like humanist super intelligence, still with humans in control. But I don't know. At a certain point, I think if you achieve super intelligence, I don't know. Are humans still in control? Episode for another day. All right. Before we get into the rest of our AI news stories, a quick word from our sponsors.
It's a problem I hear all the time. The gap between the AI champions and everyone else in your organization is sizable. You might have half a team that wants to fine-tune models by hand, and the other half doesn't know what an API is. How do you get them working together on AI that moves the needle without creating a security nightmare? That's where Area really shines. They built one platform with 3 ways to work. Your developers can go full pro code and build custom agents with Python. Your business analysts can use the low-code tools, or your domain experts who've never coded, they can use the drag and drop no-code builder. Everyone's building in the same secure governed environment. No shadow IT, no security gaps, and because they're model agnostic, you're not locked into one vendor's ecosystem with Area. You can even A/B test different agents against each other, try different models, and when you're ready, deploy to production on the same platform. Your AI strategy should unite your team, not divide them. Check out Area in today's show notes or on our website for a free trial. Go to airia.com. Get rid of the AI gap and move forward with a more resilient AI ecosystem.
All right, getting back to our AI news, IBM cutting thousands of jobs as it sets its focus on its AI business. So IBM said that it is going to lay off a quote unquote low single digit percentage of its roughly 270,000 global employees this quarter, a move that underscores a shift toward higher growth AI consulting and software, according to Bloomberg reports. So even if it was a 1% cut, which it's probably going to be more than one, that would be 2,700 people. So we are talking thousands, maybe potentially 10,000 or more, providing a clear sense of scale just for people that are trying to say, okay, what's a low single digit percentage? So probably somewhere from 3,000 to 10,000 plus. So reports are showing that there's several thousand employees who have already received notices, giving them 30 days to find a new role inside IBM or face termination. An IBM spokesperson told CNBC that while some U.S. roles may be hit, the company expects U.S. headcount to remain flat year over year, signaling internal reshuffling alongside these cuts. So IBM says the pivot is driven by rising demand in AI. CFO Jim Kavanaugh told analysts that roughly 80% of AI consulting and software clients in the last 6 months were new to IBM. So that's according to the New York Times. So on the AI consulting side and on the AI software side, IBM is booming. So they are going to be growing in those areas, but cutting some jobs in others. So bookings for AI consulting and software reached almost $10 billion in the third quarter, up $2 billion from the prior quarter, according to the Wall Street Journal. So IBM reported $16 billion in quarter 3 2025 revenue, up 9% year over year. So yeah, revenue growing, opportunities growing, but job losses also growing. All right, another thing that's growing is Meta's investment in AI. So Meta says it plans to invest $600 billion in U.S. infrastructures and jobs by 2028. Let's see, how many researchers can that buy from Apple? Like 10. So that's a scale that, if realized, would make it one of the largest private buildouts tied to AI and data centers in the country. So yeah, this is something kind of had already been reported. CEO Mark Zuckerberg was actually caught on a hot mic back in September at a White House dinner, kind of throwing this figure out. But Meta did confirm it and release some new details. So the company frames the spend as a national competitiveness play, saying data centers are crucial to maintaining America's tech edge and delivering the next wave of AI products. So the $600 billion figure, like I said, matches the number that was floated out in September. And he said he wasn't sure what number you wanted to go with. So it could have been a couple different numbers, but apparently they settled on 600 billion. What a conversation to have, right? When you're talking about hundreds of billions, you're like, I'm not sure where we're going to land. Let's say 600 billion. So Meta says its existing US data centers have supported over 30,000 skilled trade jobs and 5,000 operation roles since 2010. So the company links the investment also to a push for personal superintelligence, a term, like I said earlier, for AI systems that surpass human cognitive abilities. Nothing, I guess, shocking here because we've been hearing about this number now for a couple of months. But I guess we're going to see what else now becomes official, because this had been a huge number thrown out there, right? 600 billion. And everyone's like, wait, is this real? So essentially Meta says, yes, it is real. So we would expect some other now official commitments coming from Meta. Like, what are they doing, right? Obviously, they have some big data centers in the work. They're spending literally billions of dollars, sometimes on a couple of researchers at a time. So yeah, we'll see if that actually pays off on the model side. Right. There's been rumors swirling around over the last 3 to 6 months after their big shuffle at Meta. They've been cutting, people from prior AI teams and kind of restructuring everyone. So there's been some rumors that maybe they would stop going down the open source route and maybe might go to proprietary models, which would be wild, right? Because OpenAI, everyone's like, oh, OpenAI, you're not open. And well, now they do have open models. So it would be quite a shift in events if Meta ended up going proprietary or closed source. But that hasn't been official. But I mean, we'll see, because if you are investing $600 billion, right, where are you going to make the money? Where are you going to make the money? Because Meta's previous open source models have not been competitive, right? If you look on the charts right now, even on open source charts, they're not a top model, not even really close, especially with what we've seen coming out of China, right? And then you're saying, okay, well, maybe, Meta's going to make a pivot and go proprietary. Okay, maybe. But I mean, everyone else is starting to now kind of go in Meta's water, specifically OpenAI, right? Their Sora app has been extremely popular. Technically, it is a social network. So they're kind of, kind of stomping in Meta's backyard. So we'll see if Meta also returns the favor and they're like, okay, yeah, we're going to release a model that is, bonkers off the charts. Maybe they get it figured out with the billions of dollars they're spending on people, and maybe they end up, charging for it. Time will tell. Also, time will tell if we're going to be running data centers in space, because one of the most probably out of left field AI news stories of the week is that Google's Project Suncatcher, trying to explore AI data centers in space. So Google announced that they're testing a plan to run AI computers on satellites. So according to Google, this could ease local opposition to new data centers while opening a new way to scale AI. So to put it very simply, because I read this a couple of times and I'm like, wait, what? So the idea is, and I'm dumbing this down here, the idea is to fly small satellites really close together so they can share data quickly, staying within about a kilometer of each other and often just a few hundred meters apart. So Google says this tight no-thrust formation mostly lets the satellites drift together with small course fixes as needed. So yeah, if you're wondering, like, how can they fly all of these satellites that are technically going at light speed, right? Even if they're just floating out there in space. Well, it's that whole no thrust formation, apparently. But the big hurdle is whether regular off the shelf chips can actually survive in space. So Google right now is stress testing its latest cloud TPU chips with high energy particle blasts to mimic space radiation. So yeah, Google's putting their TPU chips in the microwave, not in the actual microwave, but they're putting them through some space radiation emulation to see if it'll actually even work. And early tests have been promising so far, showing the chips held up longer than expected before errors appeared, which is a promising sign for using commercial hardware in orbit. So Google's goal is for each chip to last at least 5 years in space, which is the minimum they say is needed for this to make sense fiscally. So the first two test satellites could launch by early 2027, and those early tests will obviously be expensive, and Google will be burning cash, but more of a long-term investment to see if this will work out, because they hope that by the mid-2030s, Google expects launch prices could drop to make it actually fiscally feasible, which could make space data centers cost competitive with those on the ground. Right. So supporters say moving compute to space could cut local noise, water use, energy consumption, and power strain, but critics warn it could add to cloud clutter in the sky and affect astronomy. Who knows what it could affect, because this is something that's kind of unheard of. This isn't the first time someone's talking about doing AI data centers in space, but this seems like, okay, it might be turning into a reality sooner than expected, with some test flights going up maybe in like a year and a half, right? So to go from this being kind of a pipe dream to, oh, we could be less than 2 years out, to Google actually sending TPUs, right, their version of GPUs to space to run AI, it's kind of wild. You could say it's out of this world. That was a bad joke. All right. Our last big piece of AI news. This one is big. So it is Backstop Gate. Apparently, I'm going to call it that. So a seemingly back and forth flip-flop on OpenAI's messaging around the intersection of the federal government and AI. So here's what happened. It's a little confusing, but I'm going to walk you through it step by step. So it started with OpenAI CFO Sarah Frier speaking at a Wall Street Journal panel that she hoped the federal government would play a role in supporting AI investments. After fumbling around for a word, she used the word backstop, which some interpreted as a request for federal guarantees. So then right after that happened and the media blew it up, maybe rightfully so, Fryer walked back the wording on a LinkedIn post, writing that, and I quote, OpenAI is not seeking a government backstop for our infrastructure commitments, end quote, and explaining that her intent in saying that was to highlight how building U.S. industrial capacity requires both private sector investment and an appropriate government role, not specifically saying that OpenAI needs a backstop. And then on Thursday, CEO Sam Altman reinforced the clarification on Twitter, stating that OpenAI neither has nor wants government guarantees for its roughly $1 trillion of data center plans and investments in the next few years, arguing that governments should not pick winners or losers or ask taxpayers to bail out private companies that make bad decisions, right? And OpenAI is technically the most valuable private company in the world. And obviously, this has been going on, as I talked about earlier, kind of the big short AI play, everything else. But the comments landed as the AI linked stocks in the market fell off sharply. Like I said, NVIDIA was down 7% over the week, wiping out over $400 billion in market value. Microsoft was off 4%. Palantir, like I said, 13%. But here's what it boils down to. A lot of people are saying, well, should there be some sort of insurance policy or guarantee from the government for AI if AI is as important as it seems that it could be? Well, after the financial crisis, the US government did introduce this very backstop for the banking system, right? So there's a lot of interesting pros and cons, right, of what this might look like. Obviously, yeah, there should probably be a line between the private sector and the public sector. But even with what the White House is doing right now, right? The White House has like equity stake in a private company, in a private AI company, right? Or sorry, not a private AI company, a public AI company. So there's obviously been some huge private public partnerships. Like I said, the government has a 10% stake in a public AI company. So I don't think it's all that crazy, right? But obviously, the people against this are saying, well, this creates market distortion, taxpayer risk. There's privacy, security concerns, obviously, the risk of misuse, just the regulatory feature. But a lot of people are actually for this, some sort of government backing, not for OpenAI, right? But for the AI industry as a whole, or some sort of more intentional investments proactively versus more of like an insurance policy or guarantee of last resort, like what happened with the financial crisis in the banking system. And the people advocating for this will say this gives the US a geopolitical edge. It can lead to faster AI breakthroughs in infrastructure, better public services, etc. So it's an interesting take, but I'll leave it at that. Let me know in the in the podcast comments or live stream if you think this is an absolutely great idea or a terrible idea. But regardless, OpenAI has kind of walked back from this, although they did put a blog post out in October that kind of hinted at this anyway. So that's why I said it's kind of been this apparent flip flop, because they kind of put a blog post out a couple of weeks ago, which we covered in the newsletter, that hinted at this. OpenAI CEO Sam Altman kind of hinted at this on a recent podcast he was at. But then the CFO kind of said it out loud very directly. Everyone lost their noodles, and then they kind of backtracked. So it's an interesting story to follow. But that is it for the big AI news stories, but we're going to end with what's new and what's next. This is our quick fire off round of bullet point rumors, rants, releases that maybe just didn't make our top 9 or 10 AI news stories. And there's a lot. So here we go. Let me take a sip. Let's get after it. Here we go. Google released its 7th gen Ironwood TPU. OpenAI announced they reached 1 million business users, the fastest in history. OpenAI signed a $38 billion partnership with AWS after its updated restructure with Microsoft allowed them to shop around for cloud services. Speaking of Microsoft, they released their new image model, Image 1 in Bing Image Creator, so you can go use that and test it out. OpenAI released Sora on Android phones. Google rolled out AI mode on Chrome on mobile. I used that a lot this weekend. There's a recent ChatGPT enterprise study that showed that 95% of users say ChatGPT saves them hours a week. Google released a Gemini-powered Google Maps where you can talk natively, right, for driving directions in natural language. Notebook LM added Sheets import from Google Drive, mobile updates, and a ton more. We're going to be covering that, all the new Notebook LM updates on Wednesday for our Putting AI to Work on Wednesday. Snapchat and Perplexity signed a $400 million deal for Snap to use Perplexity. Speaking of Perplexity, they rolled out a performance and feature update for its agentic browser Comment. OpenAI's released a new blog post calling for more serious safety measures as AI's capabilities are growing too fast. Yeah, it's actually a pretty important blog post. If you missed it in our newsletter, you should probably go read it. OpenAI released GPT-5 Codex Mini, a new cost-efficient version of GPT-5 Codex. OpenAI rolled out Peloton and TripAdvisor apps in ChatGPT. So now there's 9 in total. Google rolled out, this is a big one, Google rolled out Gmail, Drive, Chat, Search, and more in deep research inside of Gemini. Really cool. So now you can do deep research across all of those different Workspace apps. There's been a ton of online rumors about a GPT 5.1 model from OpenAI. So GPT-5 might get an update any week, month, day, hour, who knows, right? Along with Gemini 3. ChatGPT announced a new feature to interrupt thinking models by inserting more context. I'm excited for that one to roll out. So if you've ever used ChatGPT's deep research or, GPT-5 Thinking Pro, you might have to wait 5, 10, 15 minutes and you can't interrupt it. Well, now you can. Sam Altman announced in a tweet that OpenAI would hit $20 billion in revenue this year. Leaks suggest a new Nano Banana 2 from Google is in the works. Ooh, spicy. And Amazon sued Perplexity over Comet AI browser shopping on Amazon, saying, hey, only humans can shop on Amazon, not agentic browsers. All right, that was a ton. And if you spend hours every single day scratching your head at all the AI news and just getting lost and getting confused, well, join us on Mondays, right? This is what we do on Mondays, bring you the AI news that matters. So spending a little bit more time talking about the top AI news stories of the week and then running down the rumors, rants, and what's next and what's new. So I hope this was helpful. And if it is, tell someone about it, right? We're getting into the holidays, the season of giving. Give your coworker, give your friend, give your neighbor, give your mother's neighbors, coworkers, dogs, babysitters, best friends, girlfriend. Give that person free AI, unbiased education from Everyday AI. So if you could share about this, if you're listening on the podcast, please click that follow button, right? Especially on Spotify. We would appreciate that. Leave us a rating if you could. Tell someone about it. And then when you're done, go to youreverydayai.com. Sign up for the free daily newsletter. Thanks for tuning in. Hope to see you tomorrow and every day for more Everyday AI. Thanks, y'all.
As someone that covers AI every day, no one knows which AI model will be best in 6 months. That's why betting everything on one vendor is dangerous, and that's why Area can solve the LLM FOMO issue. They're completely model agnostic. Use GPT for one agent, Claude for another, your own fine-tune model for something else. Switch anytime without rewriting code. Their intelligent routing automatically sends requests to the right model based on your rules. Check out today's show notes or our website for a free trial of Area. Go to AIRIA.com because vendor lock-in is a terrible long-term bet.
And that's a wrap for today's edition of Everyday AI. Thanks for joining us. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and leave us a rating. It helps keep us going. For a little more AI magic, visit youreverydayai.com and sign up to our daily newsletter so you don't get left behind. Go break some barriers, and we'll see you next time.